So let's start with the Gemara over here. We're in the middle of our quest to continue the sugya of Hilchos Tefillah. Let's begin with a Gemara in Brachas Taf Gimel Amud Aleph. What the Gemara says like this: Eliyahu Hanavi, I can imagine Eliyahu Hanavi tells Rabbi Yossi that 3 times a day the heavenly voice calls out, and when Klal Yisrael gather together in shul, in a Beis HaKnesses, in a Beis HaMedrash, and they say Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah, the Rabbeinu Shalom tells Eliyahu Hanavi to Rabbi Yossi, nods his head and says, praiseworthy is the king whose children praise him in his house in such a manner. And unfortunate is the father who had to exile his children, and woe is to the children who were exiled from their father's table. So the Gemara tells us over here that Eliyahu Hanavi tells us in some small way the godless of what Kaddish is all about. Now this Rabbi says an opportunity that we have every single day, numerous times during davening. Of course, we're talking about a person that comes to shul and davens with a minyan, then you get Kaddish. But the inyan of Kaddish is an amazing, amazing thing. Shulchan Aruch tells us in Siman Ein Arachaim, it was instituted by the Anshe Knesses Hagadola. It was instituted specifically after the Churban Bayis Rishon, after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. Then the Aruch HaShulchan also explains that it was a very awe-inspiring expression of praise to the Rabbeinu Shalom when you hear Kaddish. Now most people, I shouldn't say that, let me take that back. Some people, the moment they start the word Yiskadel or Yiskadash, whatever Nusach you daven or shul you go to, they start to tune out. Alright, now's time to think about what I'm going to eat, now's time to open a sefer, now's the time to walk around, now's the time to take off my tefillin. There's lots of things that we could do during Kaddish, right? Chazal tell us, if we realize what goes on at the time of Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah, at the time of the opportunity of Kaddish, it is the most awe-inspiring opportunity to praise the Rabbeinu Shalom, and not only the person that's saying the Kaddish we're talking about, but every one of us who is listening. We're a reciprocant of that Kaddish, we're hearing it, and we can answer as well, have an opportunity over there. So the Aruch HaShulchan says that, of course, that we're davening over here specifically that Klal Yisrael should gather together after all the Golus finishes, and there should be a repairing of all the Klal Yisrael. And we daven specifically the word that we say, Yiskada v'Yiskada Shemei Rabbah, that his great name should be exalted and sanctified. Of course, it's all based on psukim, but just recognize for a minute, the Chazan is saying the most incredible thing. He is saying that the Rabbeinu Shalom's name should be great, should be exalted, should be sanctified. And what are we doing? We're looking around, opening up a sefer, we're putting away our tefillin, walking out the Beis Medrash. 1 second. The Rabbeinu Shalom's name is being sanctified. You have an opportunity to say Amen, which basically means you're agreeing to that, and you're not bothered. It's like, can you imagine a guy who's on, I think I played baseball maybe once in my life, maybe twice in my life, right? They always stuck me left field or something, all the way, go as far as you can, until we could just see you. You stay over there, right? Because they knew that I'm not going to be able to, I have the glove, but I was never, I don't know, it was not my thing to catch it, I don't know, whatever it's called. So they would stick me all the way in the back of there. So imagine a guy who's in the middle, I don't know what that's called, but a guy who's bang smack in the middle of the whole situation, right? And the ball comes his way over me, and he just he's on his phone. Hello, what are you doing? The ball is coming down. Catch it with the glove. Figure it out, right? It'll be a home run, right? That's what it is, right? It's gonna be a home run, but you're on your phone. You're busy. Here we have Yiskadal v'Yiskadash Shemei Rabbah, which means the Rabbeinu Shalom's name should be great, exalted, sanctified. I'm on my phone. I'm busy. I'm not answering. What are you, crazy? Come on, this is an amazing opportunity. We have to recognize the opportunity for Kaddish is really, really amazing thing. And I'll tell you some halachas, because after all, we're trying to learn halachas here over here. You need 10 people to say Kaddish, right? We said this before. One of the miles of a minyan is that you can say Dvam Kedusha. And of course, one of the Dvam Kedusha that you can only say with the minyan is Kaddish. That means that Kaddish is one of the tefillahs that the Shekhinah is mamish here. Because you need the Shekhinah to be here, and that's why you need 10 people to be present. By the way, there's an interesting halacha. What happens if a person is saying Kaddish, and some of the minyan left? I don't know why that would happen. But let's say there's 10 people exactly, or even if there's more, and a bunch of guys walked out, and you look around the middle of Kaddish, like, there's only 8 guys in the base medrash. Again, I don't know where that would be ever Negeya. But let's say, what do you do in such a case? The halacha is you're allowed to continue saying Kaddish. Even though there's no 10 people right there, because as long as you started with 10 people, you can go. Obviously you shouldn't go out. I'm not saying there's a heter to go out, chas v'shalom. But if a situation arose, and you look around, you're like, hey, there's no minion here right now in the middle of Kaddish, you don't have to stop the chazan. You can continue going in that case. By the way, the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yotes, very important. This is very important. The Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yotes tells us that when a person answers Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba B'chol Koichai B'Kavana B'Kol Rom, whatever, however you learn, it's mevatel a gzar din of many years. So can you imagine, Rahman al-Itzlan, if in Shomayim there's a din against not us but against somebody, and he says Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba with the great Kavana B'Kol Rom loud, which is Ma'oy with the Kavana, the Mishnah Berurah says, he's mevatel gzeres. You can mevatel, you can annul terrible decrees that are upon either a person's self or on Klal Yisrael by answering that. That is an incredible thing. Not only that, the Gemara says the gates of Gan Eden open up. What an amazing opportunity. We have numerous times during the day. Okay, that's a very, very important thing. Now, by the way, standing up, the minig of Ashkenaz is that we stand up. The Ramah says it in Siman Nun Vav. The Ramah says quite clearly, V'yesh la'amoid k'sha'oinim Kaddish. You should stand up when answering Kaddish, and that's the Maisa, the Psak of the Ramah, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and others. Sfadim have a different minig, right? There are different minhagim within the Sfadim, but most Sfadim, Lemaisa, the Kaf HaChaim says in Kuf Mem Vav, if they're already sitting when they hear it, they can remain sitting. They've got no chiyuv to stand. But if they're already standing when they hear Kaddish, they should not sit down, at least until they've said Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba. What happens if you have a Sfadi guy davening with an Ashkenazi minion? So then the poskim say, the Kaf HaChaim even says, it's nochon for a Sfadi to stand if he's in an Ashkenazi minion and everyone else is standing. By the way, if you look at Orchos Yosha, the sefer that we quoted from Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, at the back of the sefer, he goes through all the inyanim of tefillah that people are mezalzel in. And one of them is he talks about Kaddish, and he talks about a person that's sitting when the chazan says Kaddish. So there the chazan is, he's saying Kaddish, and the guy's sitting. He's sitting down in that case. Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal writes in the sefer Orchos Yosha that if a person sits when Kaddish being recited, again, I'm just quoting you the Lashon, I should have brought it in, I'm sorry, but I wrote it down. Number one, he's a poirish min tzibur. He's separating himself from the tzibur, and he's mevazik kvoid shamayim. He's disgracing the honor of heaven, I think would be the correct translation, which is a pretty bad thing that a person generally doesn't want to be part of. A person has to, in the Shulchan Aruch, by the way, paskins this way. If you look in Siman Nun Vav, look at the Lashon of Shulchan Aruch. Yesh lechaven ba'aniyas HaKaddish. Okay? You have to have kavana, psak in Shulchan Aruch. You have to have kavana when you hear Kaddish in that case. Very, very important, which means, and as the Mishnah Berurah also says, a person also should not be learning Torah at that time. You may think, well, I'm learning Torah, Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. It doesn't work when it comes to Kaddish. You should stop learning, like you should be doing, also stopping learning during Chazaras HaShatz, even though the Yetzer chaps a person, it's the best time for a person to learn. People become big masmidim just during Chazaras HaShatz. During Seder, they've got what to do. During Chazaras HaShatz, all the sun, the Sfarim are open, they're busy learning. It's mamish, I remember Rabbi Zil Orbach told me, mamish, he saw Talmidei Chachomim that were busy learning during Chazaras HaShatz. It's mamish. We'll talk about Chazar Hashatz maybe a different time. But I'll go in the Shulchan Aruch paskins that a person has to have kavanah during Kaddish. In that case, it's very, very chomo when a person speaks, by the way. Mishnah Berurah talks about a person who speaks during Kaddish. Oy vavoy. Forget about speaking during davening, which we know. We have Baruch Hashem the Tefillah on both sides of the Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash here for the Heilige Tosfos Yontiv, Talmud of the Maral. Very, very, very chomo about people that speak during davening, what it can do to yourself, your family, and everybody else. But during Kaddish, to speak, that is gefährlich. Not only that, the Mishnah Berurah says quite clearly, a person should not be doing any action during Kaddish. Folding up your talis and tefillin, Mishnah Berurah says, should not be done during Kaddish, even though it's the best time to do it, because why not? I'm not doing anything anyway. The answer is, of course you are. You're exalting the Rabbeinu Shalom's name in that case, which is very important. Between the tefillin shal yad and the tefillin shal rosh, obviously, we do not answer. So if you're putting on your tefillin shal yad and you haven't yet put it on your tefillin shal rosh, your avada will not answer to Kaddish over there. And I will mention to you what the Mishnah Berurah says over here Suman Nun Vav, where he talks about the halachas of answering Kaddish. He goes through mamash the whole arichas over here. Listen to this lashon of Shulchan Aruch. Ulishtadel loretz kedei lishmaya Kaddish. Try and run to hear a Kaddish. Chap a Kaddish. Chap whatever you can. Again, where do we find such a lashon of Shulchan Aruch? He's almost giving us like hadrachas achayim. Which again, well, that's what the Shulchan Aruch is, obviously. But normally it's like clear-cut halachas. This is a psak halacha. The halacha is you're meant to be mishtadel, to run, to find a kaddish. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what's the pshat? The Mishnah Berurah says, I'll tell you why. Very simple. She'anias omein yehei shmei rabba, hu mitzvah gedola ma'oid. Omein yehei shmei rabba, odiv tfei mi kedusha moidim. It's better than kedusha and moidim. Just saying the word amen yeshmerah, obviously with kavanah. But kol rom, Shulchan Aruch says you're meant to say ola no soila, but kol rom. It's halach and Shulchan Aruch. You're meant to say it loud. Loud doesn't mean screaming, avadonisht. Loud means, as the Mishnah Berurah says, shal yedei ze misoira kavanah. When you say amen yeshmerah loud, you're ma'oira the kavanah. Va'al yedei kol ze mevatlin gzeiros koshois. Again, it's the Gemara in Kuf Yutes on Shabbos. Imavatal Gzeiros. The Rabbi said there's many Gzeiros, unfortunately, that we're seeing in Klal Yisrael that are not so geschmack. Efshar, we can be Mavatal them by answering with Kavanah. Not too loud. He says, don't do it too loud because you can upset people, whatever it is. Don't start screaming. That's a vada not. But with Kavanah means it should be you should be able to hear it yourself, and it also should be with Kavanah as well. And that's the psak in the Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah Berurah brings it. These two halachas come from the Rishonim, which kol kochai is a very important thing. A person is not even allowed to think Torah at the time during Kaddish, obviously not to speak. In fact, Masechtas Derech Eretz brings down that Rav Chama once saw Eliyahu Hanavi with a few thousand camels, and these camels were laden with anger, whatever that means, that these camels had anger on them, and they were there in order to punish those that speak during Kaddish. The pasuk Oisi Karasa Yaakov, pasuk Yeshayahu, means you do not call out to me. Yaakov it refers to a person who speaks during Kaddish. The Beis Yosef brings this in Orach Chaim Kuf Chav Hey, and it's mashma from the Beis Yosef that the Rabbeinu Shalom will not listen to the tefillahs of the people that speak during Kaddish. So Rabbi say, let's be machazik. We've learned some of the halachas. We've learned some of the inyanim. Let's be machazik ourselves in the aniyas of Kaddish, of Roritz is trying to come over to Kaddish, to be quiet, to listen, to concentrate, and of course to answer b'kol rom, avada omein, and whatever else. But for sure, omein yehei shmei rabba is the ikka, and what happens in Shemayim b'shas ma'asim or answering omein could be amazing things, and every single one of us had that schos to be able to change many of the gzeros in Klal Yisrael. Tomorrow, brand new sugya. Have an amazing day.